Welcome everyone who's here to the Hamilton Urban Core Community Health Center HART Hub Community Engagement Session. I'm very excited to be facilitating this evening. I'll just introduce myself briefly. My role tonight is just to facilitate this meeting, but I have a long history with Urban Core. I worked in the center some years ago, and then after that I was on the board, and I was actually chair of the board from 2008 to 2021. So that actually adds up to 13 years. I thought it was 12, but it was 13 years. So for a long time, and I'm very much a supporter of the center. So in that sense, I'm not neutral, but I'm here today to be a neutral facilitator of this community engagement session. We have a lot of information to give you that will come from both staff at Urban Core and the board and from community partners. And then there will be time towards the end, about the last half hour, for some community questions from you and discussion. So please hold your questions till the end until we've had a chance to give you all the information that we have to give you. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. I think there's the next slide on that, but the traditional land acknowledgement in this area acknowledges both the traditional territories of the Mississauga people and other Anishinaabe people, such as historically the Erie, the Neutral, the Huron-Wendat, as well as the Haudenosaunee, who have lived here since time immemorial and have deep connections to this land. And we can also reference the various interactions between the crown that represented the settler colonial folks, such as between the Lakes Purchase of 1792 and other treaties between the crown and the Mississaugas and the Haudenosaunee, such as the Nanfan Treaty of 1701. But also we recognize the dish with one spoon wampum belt, which recognizes the agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe and their agreement to share the lands and the resources. Hamilton continues to be home to a vibrant, diverse Indigenous communities who have distinct and specific histories and needs, as well as these constitutionally protected treaties. Hamilton Urban Core is located not far from Six Nations of the Grand River, and most Indigenous people in the Hamilton Urban Core catchment area live in urban Hamilton. We honor this diversity and respect the knowledge, leadership, and governance frameworks within Indigenous communities. We are grateful for the opportunity to live, meet, and work on this territory. So housekeeping tonight is, as I said, we've got everybody on mute just so that you can all use your ears and eyes and watch the presentations and listen to the presentations, but you will have a chance to put questions in the chat or unmute and ask your questions in the Q&A section. So without any further ado, I would like to ask the chair of the board, Ike, to give some opening remarks.
Thank you, Jane, and welcome to everyone. My name is Ike Awase, and I'm the board chair for the Hamilton Urban Core Community Health Center. I would like to also acknowledge that we have some other board members here, Catherine Bishop and Dr. Ucha Numba. They are all here, and I'm sure more board members will join as we proceed with this meeting. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. On behalf of the Board of Directors of Hamilton Urban Core Community Health Center, I would like to warmly welcome all elected officials, community members, neighbors, partners, and colleagues who have taken the time away from their busy schedules to join us this evening. We are grateful for your presence and for the opportunity to continue this important conversation together. Tonight's session is intended to continue an open dialogue and provide information about the proposed HART Hub residential treatment and recovery services at 276 Aberdeen Avenue. For Hamilton Urban Core, this initiative represents an important next step in the evolution of our work in our mental health and substance use program. For more than 5 years, our organization has been supporting individuals experiencing substance use and complex health challenges through our consumption and treatment services program, while also providing primary care, health promotion, and outreach services to some of the most vulnerable members of our community. When the province announced changes in August 2024 regarding the CTS sites closures and invited organizations to transition to the homeless, addiction, recovery, and treatment, which is what is known as the HART hub model, we carefully considered how we could continue to serve people in need while strengthening pathways to recovery. Rather than viewing the challenge as a setback, we saw it as an opportunity to evolve our services and deepen the support available to people who are ready to move towards stability and recovery. With approval from the ministry in April 2025, we began working closely with the City of Hamilton, elected officials, and a number of valued community partners, including the Good Shepherd, Indwell, our Francophone and Indigenous partners, who are here with us this evening, and other health and social service organizations. Together, we are building an integrated system of care that connects health services, housing supports, and recovery programs so individuals can move forward in a more coordinated and supportive way. The Residential Treatment and Recovery Services Program, which we are discussing tonight, represents an important step within that broader system of care. We also recognize that whenever new services are introduced into a neighborhood, it is natural for residents to have questions, concerns, and a desire to understand what this means for their community. That is exactly why community engagement is so important to us. Engagement is not simply a step in the process, it is an ongoing commitment. We are committed to being open and transparent, listening carefully to feedback, and continue to work collaboratively with residents, partners, and city representatives as this project moves forward. This includes maintaining open lines of communication, hosting additional opportunities for dialogue, and ensuring that the program is implemented in a way that contributes positively to the well-being and safety of the broader community. I would also like to take a moment to recognize the tremendous effort that has gone into bringing this initiative to this particular point. I want to say a big thank you to our Executive Director, Dr. Sandy Ezepwe, our leadership team, staff, community partners, and funders who have worked tirelessly to develop this program and explore solutions to some of the most pressing health challenges facing our city. And finally, I want to thank all of you, the residents and community members, who continue to engage with us in a thoughtful and constructive ways. Your perspectives matter, your questions matter, and your participation helps us build stronger and more responsive solutions together. At the heart of this work is a simple but very, very important belief that every person deserves the opportunity to access care, recover, rebuild their lives, and contribute meaningfully to the community. Working together, we can support that goal while also ensuring that our neighborhood remain healthy, safe, and inclusive place for everyone. Thank you once again for being here tonight. At this point, I'll hand it back to Jane to continue with the agenda. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Ike. And thank you for welcoming our board members. I neglected to say that I think we also have two elected officials with us tonight. That's Maureen Wilson from City Council and Robin Lennox from the Ontario Parliament. So welcome to those folks as well. And I believe that Tevia Morrow is also here from the Hamilton Spectator. So welcome to all. And next, I'm going to call on Wilson Lapointe, who's going to give a presentation or some remarks about the integrated care at the core.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wilson Lapointe. I'm the Senior Manager for Integrated Care and Client Experience with Urban Core. So today, I will briefly present the residential treatment and recovery model developed as part of the HART Hub Hamilton initiative, led by Hamilton Urban Core Community Health Center. The HART Hub initiative was created to strengthen the continuum of care for individuals experiencing substance use, challenges, and homelessness. Our model recognizes that recovery does not happen in a single step. Instead, people move through stages as they stabilized, build readiness for change, and eventually engage in treatment and recovery. The residential treatment program we are proposing represent the fourth stage of the recovery journey. As you can see it in the slide, the fourth stage is the residential treatment, providing intensive support for individuals who are ready to begin structured treatment. One key initiative was this: we see in addiction, especially in addiction care, is that recovery is rarely immediate. Mostly, individuals move through several stages before they are ready to fully engage in treatment. Many people experiencing addiction are also dealing with housing instability, trauma, mental health challenges, and systemic barriers that makes recovery more complex. Traditionally, service systems sometimes expect individuals to be ready for treatment immediately. But in practice, many people first need time to stabilize, build trust with providers, and address their basic needs. This is why the HART Hub model focuses on the stages of continuum of care, where individuals can move through progressive level of support until they reach a point where treatment becomes more effective. So this stage, let's move to the next, please. So this part, we're going to develop for you more about the residential treatment. This stage represents this point where individuals are ready to actively engage in treatment. Residents in this program lives in a structured environment for approximately 3 months, where they receive intensive support focused on recovery. And the facility operates with a 24-hour staffing and supervision model, control access to the building, structured daily programming, professional clinical and counseling support. This means residents are not simply coming and going freely. The program is structured and supervised with clear expectation and support system in place. The purpose of this is to provide a safe and stable environment where individuals can focus on recovery and preparing for reintegration into society. We move to the next slide, please. What happens in treatment? The residential treatment program is built around a structured daily schedule designed to support recovery and personal development. Each resident receives a comprehensive assessment addressing their medical, psychological, social, and cultural needs. Based on this assessment, a personalized care plan is developed, daily programming including individual addiction counseling, mental health support, relapse prevention programming, life skills development, recreational wellness activities. So the program also helps residents build connection with peer mentors, community support, which are essential for maintaining recovery after leaving the program. Throughout the program, staff work closely with clients to prepare safe discharge and successful reintegration to the community. So this, to put it on sum, it's when our case management model starts. Residents slowly follow a structured daily designed to support recovery, stability, and personal development. By this time, individuals enter the residential program. They have already moved through early stage of the continuum, including engagement with ongoing addiction case manager, participation in the Seed of Change, which is a psychoeducational program, and stabilization through the preparation stage, which is about 2 weeks prior to start with our engagement program. Upon admission, each resident receive a comprehensive assessment, and their previously developed care plan is reviewed and refined to guide their treatment and recovery goals. As we stated earlier, individual mental health and addiction counseling, they get access to this. Relapse prevention and addiction treatment programming, ongoing case management from their addiction worker that they initially engage with. So it is essential to mention in this stage that one addiction worker start working with the person, and then they with this person for the entirety of their time with the program. The program also focuses on preparing residents for the next stage of recovery, including housing instability, employment readiness, and community reintegration. Because residents participate in structured programming throughout the day, so they have access to our 24/7 staff supervision, and the environment remains organized, supportive, and recovery focused, helping individuals to build the stability needed for long-term recovery. We move to the next slide, please. Research consistently show that residential treatment program can be highly effective, particularly for individuals with complex substance use challenges. Studies have found that individuals who complete residential treatment often experience improvements, not only in the substance use outcome, but it's also in the mental health, social functioning, and quality of life. Evidence also suggests that resident treatment is particularly effective for individuals with co-occurring mental health conditions, where structured and integrated care is essential. National frameworks include those from the Canadian Centre of Substance Use and Addiction, recognize residential treatment as an important component of the addiction treatment continuum. By combining clinical care, structured living environment, and ongoing recovery support, this model helps individuals move from crisis toward stability and long-term recovery. Research consistently shows that residential treatment program plays an important role in supporting individuals with complex substance use challenge. Evidence demonstrates that residential treatment can lead to improvement not only in substance use outcome, but it's also in mental health, personal stability, and overall quality of life. So organizations such as Canadian Centre of Substance and Addiction recognize residential treatment as the key component of comprehensive addiction care continuum, particularly for individuals who require structured and intensive support. Program like this helps individuals move away from crisis situation and towards stability, recovery, long-term housing, and community reintegration, where individuals receive structured treatment, consistent case management, and ongoing recovery support. The positive outcome extend beyond the individual. Communities, benefits through improved stability, reduce in crisis situation, stronger pathways to recovery, and much more. Next slide, please. So this initiative focused on a collaboration with experts in culturally savvy organization that we partnered with, including people that speak different languages or understand the background of the client that we serve, including indigenous clients or people coming from all course of lives. So in closing, I would like to say residential treatment and recovery program is designed to help individuals move from instability to recovery in a safe, supervised, and structured environment. By providing treatment and support, we are helping people rebuild their lives while also contributing to safer and healthier communities. Thank you for taking the time to learn about this initiative, and we'll pass it to the facilitator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wilson. And excuse me, folks, I do have a bit of a cough tonight. So, and I was going to mention that it's unfortunate we don't have a space large enough for all of us to gather, but there's advantages and disadvantages to doing this online. And that's one advantage, is that we're not spreading around our germs for those of us who might have those, have a cold or something going on. Thanks again for that presentation, Wilson. And next we're going to go, I believe Kim Ritchie is next. Is that correct? So, and Kim, I understand, was honored last night at the Woman of the Year Awards. So I'm going to let Kim introduce herself. I believe she's next to speak from the client perspective.
Hi, folks. How's it going? My name is Kim Ritchie. Can you guys hear me? All right, perfect. Awesome. Okay, so my name is Kim Ritchie, and I'm here to share with you my lived experience with substance use. So I'm just going to start with a quick intro of like some of my history so you can see the impact of treatment and access to services. So my father was a renowned bank robber in this city. My mother was one of the largest speed dealers in Southern Ontario, and I grew up in environments that were riddled with chaos and substance use. And I started using really heavily around the age of 15. My father became incarcerated. My mother developed cancer, and she died from 3 brain tumors and 2 lung tumors. And from there, my substance use just, severely escalated. And I found myself on the streets of the city at 15 years old, orphaned legally. And at that time, I had taught myself how to shoot up intravenously, right? So I was an intravenous substance user, and I got really good at it. And I spent a good 10, 15 years of my life in and out of incarceration, in and out of hospitals. And it was the typical story that comes with this stuff, right? I engaged in street level sex work from a young age to sustain myself. I did my best to survive on the streets of this city. So half the clients that access services, I was them. That was my life. I had a lot of substance related injuries. I had endocarditis. I had chronic wounds on my body. I developed abscesses all the time and had to have multiple surgeries. And then one night when I was trying to get home to go get high, I tried to climb over a train and I bumped my head on the second part and I collapsed between the 2 trains around Wentworth and Barton. The second train crushed my hand and degloved it of its flesh. So up until this point, stopping my use wasn't an option for me. For me, I was born into that lifestyle and I was judge, jury, and executioner. I was okay in dying from it. I didn't think people got better. I thought this was the life sentence I was handed, and I was perfectly content staying in that because there didn't seem to be any other way out. And even after I got hit by the train, this is what people don't understand about substance use and how hard it is to stop. When I was in hospital and I came to, and I was in there for months, as they tried to rebuild my hand, but I was so malnourished, none of the skin grafts would take. So I had 11 skin grafts taken off my thigh. I was in a medical coma for an extended period of time. And I wanted so bad to stop. Like everything in my person wanted to stop. But the minute I was discharged from hospital, I had some money like buried in Canada Field. And, you know, I had my little script from the hospital and I just went right back to it, even though my dominant hand that I used to shoot up with was now too damaged to use. So I ended up missing a number of hits. And that's when you try to inject something and it doesn't go into the vein, which creates abscesses. So as soon as I was released from hospital, within a period of 3 weeks, I had caused multiple injuries to my person. The skin grafts were deteriorating on my hand. The bone was protruding from my hand. And I was so exhausted from life. I was at the City Motor Hotel, which is gratefully torn down now. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I thought if I just waited long enough, the infection in my body would take out my heart, right? Because I've been here before and I had many friends that died from endocarditis, which is a heart valve infection. And I thought to myself, if I just wait long enough, it'll take me out. I don't have to do this anymore. And oddly enough, one of my friends had come into the hotel room and begged me for my own life. And even more ironic, he ended up dying years later from endocarditis, the very thing he saved me from. And the irony of that is never lost on me. So I called, 911. I let them know how the severity of my injuries. And I waited so long. And by the time they got there, they took me to the hospital and the hospital did not treat me very well. I spent 12 hours waiting with like the bone sticking out of my hand. And at that time, I did a lot of self-surgeries and self-bandaging. So I had like socks around my hand, brand new clean socks used as bandages. Everything was like stuck to everything. It was really messy. And they finally seen me and the doctor just kind of popped off on me and told me they were going to amputate the rest of my hand. Right. And I cried and I freaked out. And it was so hard to hear that. He's like, you didn't do any of your follow-ups and you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And all I could think to myself is, you discharged me homeless. How did you expect me to get here? And this is the stuff that I try to advocate against now. This is the stuff I speak to all the time, resensitizing healthcare. And this is why I'm so grateful for a lot of services that do show up in these spaces with their hearts, right? Because we have to show up to this work with our hearts. So the social worker comes out and she's like, Kimmy, we need to get you to a detoxers because there's a bed shortage at the time. We can't get you a bed here. I couldn't walk, by the way, to be clear. I missed a bunch of hits to my leg. My leg swelled up so much I couldn't straighten it, which happened to me quite frequently because I had blood clots in my legs as well. And I said, okay, I'd never been to a withdrawal management service in my life, ever. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is. But they sent me there. And these poor women, man, I did not understand like why they were being so kind, right? I was like interrogating them. I'm like, why are you so nice to me? Like, do you have family members that use drugs? Like my brain couldn't compute an act of kindness without some sort of exchange, right? And they just humored me, thank gosh. But they had to tape up my arm and tape up my leg and carry me to the shower. And I remember hearing them as I sat in the observing bubble room about how they couldn't understand how the hospital sent me to them when I was still so injured and I had so much infection going through my body. They then moved me up to the upstairs room. This is Womankind. This is a treatment center here in Hamilton. I never completed treatment, to be clear, because I was too injured, because the damage I had done in the 3 weeks after I was released from hospital was so extensive. It took another 4 radical reconstructive surgeries to rebuild my hand. And in that time, though, I was moved up to the treatment floor at Womankind, and this is their service. And they had a few beds for people who are experiencing homelessness that are on the same floor with women completing the treatment program, actually. And I also had access to the counselors. So I was in, an abstinent-based environment with access to mental health care. And the support I received was what I needed. I needed that wraparound care. I needed to be removed from environments. And when I was sent to hospital for surgeries that sometimes went for 3 weeks straight for admissions, they saved my bed. Because if they hadn't saved my bed and I was discharged back to street from hospital, I wouldn't be here today. That's the long and short of it. I would not be here today. And I don't even know if they were allowed to do that, to be honest with you guys. So like the heart's in the work. So, you know, I lived there for about almost 5 months, doing all these surgeries, all these physios, and learning to live with a disability, like a new disability. It's really hard, man. Like, I couldn't use a can opener, I couldn't do up a bra. I had to practice all the time. And I remember the one day, man, there's this little box of cereal and I couldn't open it because I'm all bandaged up. And I'm like, just sitting there, and I'm about to cry, right? Because I'm like, I can't even open a box of cereal. Like, this is my life. And this one woman comes up from the treatment program and she's like, Kimmy, do you want me to open that box? I'm like, I just looked at her like she had a halo around her head. And I'm like, yes, yes. And that's when I realized that I need to ask for help, right? This is like the glowing moment where I'm like, oh, yeah, I can just ask. And this was like the cornerstone of my wellness. Since then, I have helped in the last decade hundreds of people access detox services, treatment service. I've helped design treatment programs. And when I talk about these things, when I've had to drive people all the way to Toronto on many occasions to access a withdrawal management facility because we had no beds here. How many times that's happened, I couldn't even count. Or all the way to Brantford. We don't have enough services to meet the need. And people will die as a result of that. There's no longer short of it. That is the end result. We have 2 treatment centers here in Hamilton and then 1 day program, and they all do incredible work. Incredible work. We have recovery houses actually kind of scattered all over the city that house people leaving those treatment programs as they re-enter, right, society, because it takes a minute. When you're in destitution for so long, what I experienced when I first got sober was the quintessential to culture shock. I had to learn everything. I didn't gain anything back. I had to learn how to pay bills. I had to learn social skills. I had to learn how to interact with society in like appropriate ways because I was never exposed to that. I had been on the streets for so long. And I needed people to guide me through those processes. I needed people to ask questions. And I'm grateful that along the way, hundreds of different services and people helped me. And there's no words for the gratitude I have for that or the impact that that can have and how desperate these services are needed in the continuum of care. Without it, people aren't going to get better at all. And that's it. So I hope that as we move forward with this project, I just hope people think about that for a second. And to the fact that we have other treatment centers around the city and nobody's complaining about them, man. And they have neighbors all around them in well-to-do neighborhoods. So I just hope that people can come tonight with an open mind and open heart and understand that I understand the love for a neighborhood and wanting your neighborhood to be safe. And people like me aren't a threat. We're just not. And it doesn't have to be this way. We can work together and create neighborhoods of genuine love and wellness. So I think that's my time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Kim. That was great. We'll move on. I think next on the list of partner organizations is Dwa da Dehs Nye. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I have the name for who's speaking on behalf of Dwa da Dehs Nye. Here we go. I think it's Monica.
Yes, hi, thank you so
There
much.
we go.
Okay. Yes, and you got the name correctly, which is amazing. Dwa da Dehs Nye's Aboriginal Health Center, in partnership with Hamilton Urban Core Community Health Centers, Homeless and Addiction Recovery Treatment Hub, HART Hub, or MHAT Hub, Mental Health and Addiction Treatment. Next slide, please, Joel. So just to go over what we're going to go through today, I will be introducing us as well as telling you a little bit about Dwa da Dehs Nye's and the department, and then T will be explaining our services and how this impacts our communities. Next slide, please. So hi everyone, I'm Monica. I'm the manager of integrated programs with Dwa da Dehs Nye's Aboriginal Health Center. You'll hear me refer to this as DAHAC or DADWA, either or. I'm native to Egypt and I come from a Coptic Orthodox Christian background. I want to acknowledge that I'm a settler on these lands and have been for about 22 years. As I occupy a managerial role at this Indigenous organization, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here to serve the community. I oversee Dwa's Integrated Programs Department, which operates in partnership with two of Ontario's HART hubs, Hamilton's, of course, as well as Niagara region, bringing culturally safe, trauma-informed care, integrating traditional healing, connection to culture for Indigenous service users, as well as their families. My teams are comprised of an Indigenous addictions counselor, Indigenous auntie, and Indigenous peer outreach worker. I also have my colleague Tiana here, who comes from a mixed Ghanaian, Gayaga, and Scottish urban Indigenous background. Tiana has a social service worker diploma and an honors bachelor of social work from McMaster University, as well as many years of experience serving the community. We've been very fortunate to work with her in her current role as the Indigenous Addictions Counselor at the Hamilton location. Next slide, please. So who we are, next slide. Just a little bit about the programs that we provide at Dwa da Dehs Nye. We have clinical services. This includes primary care, doctors, nurse practitioners, nurses. I also wanted to highlight our FESD assessment and diagnostic clinic. We have cultural wellness and outreach departments, which includes patient navigation, traditional healing, as well as transportation. We have a healthy living department, which really promotes health and wellness and also talks a lot about prevention. We also have our mental health and addictions department, which has both child and youth counselors, as well as peer outreach workers, as well as a multitude of other positions. We've been servicing Hamilton for over 20 years. We also have Niagara and Brantford locations as well. Next slide. So now I'm going to pass this off to Tiana, our Indigenous Addictions Counselor with our Integrated Programs Department, directly serving Indigenous community members and families affected by homelessness and addiction, who is going to share our involvement in Hamilton's HART or MHAT hub. Over to you.
Sego, Skano, everyone. Thank you for having us. As Monica mentioned, my name is Tiana. I'm both Gaga from Six Nations of the Grand River from my dad's side and Scottish on my mom's side. Monica mentioned I've been in this field for a little bit of time now, so grateful to be here. So for my role as the addictions counselor, I'll be providing one-on-one and group mental health and addiction counseling services to our unhoused Indigenous kin. And this will look both servicing folks that are experiencing precarious housing as well as those that are living unsheltered. I'll be providing culturally safe, trauma-informed, and strengths-based supports to our Indigenous kin. For folks who might not be familiar with the term of cultural safety, it's a relatively newer term, and it describes the actioning of cultural humility and competency. So it just moves beyond like simply recognizing cultural needs and actions like a collaborative system between the counselor and the client. So it just allows for more fruitful, honest, and transparent communication between myself and my clients, as well as recognizing and addressing intergenerational and historic traumas and all of the nuances that come along with that. Along with all of this, I'll be connecting with community and partnering agencies to ensure that we can provide traditional and innovative service delivery, and providing referrals to various addiction services. So, you know, in the short future, we'll be referring to the Aberdeen location. We have a treatment service out on Six Nations, Native Horizons that we also have been partnering with to create bed-based treatment referrals along with day treatment. And this may look like Indigenous-centered referrals as well as mainstream pathways as well, depending on what fits best for our clients. And I just wanted to highlight that prior to my experience in this role, I was the Indigenous street outreach worker from the Hamilton Regional Indian Center, but I was seconded by the City of Hamilton's Housing Services Division. So I worked with the City of Hamilton's street outreach team for just over 2 years prior to coming into this role. So my knowledge that I bring from working with folks on the front lines who are living unsheltered is something that I don't take for granted coming into this role. Next slide, please. Thanks. So I just wanted to quickly touch on the Integrated Programs Department and some of the services that we offer. So for Dwa da Dehs Nye specifically, we'll be providing group programming that's centered around two-eyed seeing approaches to holistic well-being. A two-eyed seeing approach is also a newer term that highlights the strengths of both traditional and Western approaches to health and social services. So this will be used in tandem with our primary care clinic. So just ensuring that our Indigenous kin are receiving supports that are rooted in both holistic Indigenous traditional practices and best practices from Western social and medical services. So within our programming, we'll be bringing in elders, drummers, beaters, herbalists that can share traditional practices, knowledge, and life skills. Because we know that these are the things that our Indigenous can utilize that's going to benefit them for long-term successes when it comes to recovering from mental health and addictions and homelessness. And we'll be connecting individuals to various ceremonies and ceremonial practices like sweat lodges, walking stick programs, cooking with traditional foods, and creating food security and land-based addictions programming, which I think is a really important piece to highlight here. And as Monica mentioned, alongside myself, we also have the Indigenous auntie and an Indigenous peer outreach worker who will be supporting with the integrated programs as well. Next slide, please. I just wanted to put a slide in here that talks about what it means to strengthen community care when we work alongside Western and Indigenous organizations. Within Indigenous worldviews, it moves beyond just the individual. It's about creating cultural reclamation through low barrier, accessible, and judgment-free services. Centers the well-being of the individual, which then carries out and weaves into familial wellness, community wellness, and national wellness. So when we support an individual accessing Indigenous-centric mental health and addiction services, it looks like navigating those intergenerational and historic traumas that come from residential schools, 60 Scoop, Indian hospitals. While some of our clients may not be survivors of any of these colonial agents, they're affected, whether it's their parents, their grandparents, their aunties, their uncles. It's in every lineage. So it's really important that we're able to navigate those complex grief and losses around language, traditions, displacement, and safety. So through all of this, it's really important that we are focusing on the reclamation of, accessing foods and medicines and bringing in those ceremonial pieces, because that is what helps sustain long-term success. So not just balancing the mental aspect of the being, but the whole aspect of the being. Next slide, please. So alongside strengthening community care, we also have to focus on the housing piece, of course. While my role is not specific for housing, as a housing worker, more mental health and addictions, we'll be creating partnerships with various Indigenous housing organizations in the city. These would be Native Women's Centre, Sacagawea, Ontario Aboriginal Housing Services, housing supports through the Hamilton Regional Indian Centre, and Indwell, as they have some buildings that are specific for BIPOC individuals. And I just wanted to touch on how, housing, mental health, addictions, cultural reclamation, all of these things can be guided by the medicine wheel. And I think this is a really important thing to touch on, because this is what is going to be guiding a very large portion of the work I'm going to be doing with my clients. So the medicine wheel, although it varies nation to nation, generally it's an Indigenous epistemological approach that guides our way of being, doing, and knowing. So there's 4 quadrants, as you can see in the little picture here on the bottom. It's supposed to represent the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual parts of ourselves and how they weave and interconnect into one another. And they represent different things like the 4 sacred medicines, the 4 seasons, the 4 stages of life, the 4 directions, and other intersections. If I talked about the whole entire medicine wheel teaching, I might keep you guys for several weeks, so I'm not going to do that. But the shape itself is a reminder that growth is not linear. It exists within a continuous form. So utilizing the medicine wheel teachings when working with our Indigenous kin allows for honest conversation around the stages of change, and that our journey to wellness isn't an end goal, but rather a way of life and creating a new journey to walk on. Next slide, please. Thanks. So I just wanted to quickly touch on some programming that we're doing as well. While myself will be doing like one-on-one counseling, me, the Indigenous auntie, and the Indigenous peer outreach worker are also collaborating on different programming opportunities. So at this moment, I'm creating some drop-in programming and counseling services with various shelters and drop-ins throughout the city. At this moment, I'm working with one of the addictions counselors at Urban Core who created a really wonderful program called Seeds of Change. And her and I are working together in tandem to create an indigenized version of this program. So we can facilitate it at places like Native Women's Center and HRIC and our own organization. And myself and the peer outreach worker are currently creating a relapse prevention program that is influenced and centered around the 7 grandfather teachings, which is an Anishinaabe teaching that, again, is a little bit too much for me to go into right now. But yeah, so these are some of the things that we'll be incorporating, because as much as it's important to focus on the psychoeducational pieces of mental health and addiction, it's really important that we build community and create community gathering, because we know that it takes a village to be able to support someone in their recovery journey. So being able to provide these cultural connections is imperative when working with Indigenous folks. Next slide, please. And yeah, that's us. That's a little bit about us. Thank you, Niawa, Miigwech, Hihi. This is us at Dwa da Dehs Nye Aboriginal Health Center. This is our general email that me, Monica, the auntie, and the peer outreach worker have access to. So if you have any questions or general inquiries about the program, feel free to connect with us through this email. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. And I do see in the chat people are putting in questions and are anxious to get to the questions. I assure you we will get there very shortly. We've got basically 2 or 3 more short pieces, and then we'll get to the questions. So next, I believe, is a Good Shepherd. Yes. And again, I'm not sure what's the name of the person speaking on behalf of Good Shepherd.
It's Catherine Kalinowski. Thanks.
Okay, there we go.
Good evening, everybody. I'm very, very pleased to be here. My name is Catherine Kalinowski. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Good Shepherd. And I'm pleased to be here to talk about a Good Shepherd's role as a partner with the HART Hub in supporting people in our community who are struggling with substance abuse. Joel, you can do the next slide, please. So if you're not familiar, and I share this information to inform how and why we're invested in this project. Good Shepherd is the largest community-based provider of community health and human services in Hamilton. Our service continuum is very large, with most urgent needs, food security, emergency shelter for men, women, non-binary people, youth, and families. We have a variety of youth services, seniors programs, hospice and palliative care, mobile health clinic, and affordable and supportive housing. We're very committed to and strive to operate within an intersectional, anti-racist, anti-oppressive framework. And we are committed to responding both to urgent and emerging needs in the community. We're focused on the dignity of the individual, and we're committed to working ourselves, hopefully, out of that more urgent or emergency end of our service continuum, because we want to be part of efforts in our community to build resilient, healthier, and more inclusive and equitable communities for everybody. I highlight this, and in particular, want to speak to our investment in collaboration. We could go to the next slide, please, Joel. I talk about our broad continuum of services, and I have to say it has offered us a startling opportunity to watch the intersecting crises of homelessness and the opioid crisis and other addiction and gaps in the mental health system and so on, and seeing the devastating impacts that has on individuals, on couples, on families, and on our community as a whole is really a strong impetus to look for new pathways to make change. I think that change is possible for individuals, and I think change on a community level is possible, but it really does require evidence-based practices, it requires innovation, and it requires collaboration, as I mentioned. If we're not doing this in partnership and bringing to bear all of our expertise and our skills and our perspectives, we are not going to be very successful in addressing what is in some ways quite a dystopian landscape in our community. So in terms of what Good Shepherd is, and I'm not going to speak very long, but we are involved in HART Hub in two particular ways at this beginning phase. The first is to provide some temporary emergency accommodation. We know that being homeless is incredible labor. You are living in a 24/7 survival mode. Taking care of yourself, making next steps, having aspirations and goals gets swept to the side very often. Just as you try and stay warm, you try and find something to eat. You try and find a place to lay your head. Contemplating wellness and healing and recovery in that condition is particularly hard. So Good Shepherd will be providing, and is providing, in fact, 8 dedicated beds in our shelters for men, women, non-binary people, and will continue to do so. So these beds will be available to people who are involved with the HART Hub services through Hamilton Urban Core who don't have a place to stay. We will provide shelter accommodation, meals, and basic needs, clothing, hygiene products, that sort of thing. We have access to a variety of community agencies and services that come into the shelter, or we do housing-focused case management, in particular advocacy and referral for people staying in the shelter. So our services for someone who's staying in the shelter will be complemented, supported, or balanced with the services that folks can get through HART Hub. We are also hosting, and this was just mentioned, residents staying in these shelter beds are invited to participate in the Seeds of Change program that's being facilitated on site in the shelters, so far with very good feedback. So the notion is that someone who is contemplating moving towards recovery might stay in the shelter while they are taking next steps. It is also possible, as things evolve and change, that temporary emergency accommodation might be a bridge or a transitional space for someone as they're moving along their continuum. We try and be very flexible, and we'll work really closely with our HART Hub partners to say, what does this individual need? What are we able to offer? Next slide, Joel, thanks. The other piece of the work we are going to do with the HART Hub involves supportive housing. Our involvement in this is based on deep experience in providing supportive housing in Hamilton. We have about 800 units currently of affordable and supportive housing in Hamilton, as well as supportive housing programs in Toronto, and more recently a new program in the Niagara region. I would say that decades of providing supportive housing demonstrates one thing over and over again, that having a home is a foundation to living well in the community, to being able to take your needs, to take care of your needs and dream and become an engaged and accepted member in community very often. Currently, we're serving people of all kinds of backgrounds in our housing programs. We have assisted living and seniors housing. We serve many people impacted by poverty, homelessness, gender-based violence, substance use, mental health issues, and physical disabilities. And our approach to housing is really about calibrating supports to the evolving needs of the people who live in our supportive housing programs, focus on individual goals, well-being, and community engagement. We don't see the people often need different levels of support at different points in their life. We certainly anticipate people leaving HART Hub treatment program and moving into supportive housing may need different levels of support at different times across the arc of their journey. And the notion is to work complementary with the HART Hub team to ensure that people get settled into that housing, that they have access to a full range of supports and have the opportunity to thrive in our community. So we embrace the work and look forward to opportunities to grow it and see change in our community. We absolutely believe that meaningful change is possible for individuals and communities as a whole, and look forward to seeing that work unfold. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Catherine. And again, I'm seeing lots of activity in the chat. I'm just asking people to be very patient. The answers as we're getting to them. I know some people have been asking about timelines when we're going to be able to open this, and we don't have that yet. And I also think it is very relevant and important to have these presentations from our partners, because this HART Hub is not opening or not going to be opening in any kind of isolation, but it's really important that the community understands that the networks and the partnerships that are going on in the community, because this one program is not a standalone program. There's a network and partnerships that it fits into. So let's keep moving along, and you will hear also from our project lead, who will talk about timelines, but I can tell you right now that she's not going to be able to give us a timeline as of yet, and also from our neighborhood liaison table, which is Joel. But next we have one more community partner, and that is Indwell. So I'll turn that over to, I believe it's Rachel Curry giving this presentation.
Thanks, Jane. It's actually Jess Brand.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Jess, and Rachel's here with me. We're from Indwell, and I'm Indwell's regional director for our Hamilton and our Mississauga regions. And yeah, excited to be here. Once again, reminded of the incredible power of a community coming together. All of these different partners coming around our community and pulling together for these folks. We can go to the next slide. Yeah. So I want to give a quick introduction to Indwell if you haven't heard about us. This is one of our residents actually at the Royal Botanical Gardens well, not recently, but in the fall. We've been offering supportive housing for over 50 years. And we like to say that every door that we open together becomes a solution to homelessness. We can go through the next slide. These ones will go quickly, these slides. We are supporting 1,300 tenants in 7 regions across southwestern Ontario. And here's one of our staff and one of our residents. They went bowling together, a group of folks. So these are the kinds of programs that can happen in supportive housing. We empower our tenants in community to achieve health and wellness goals. Right, wellness is a balance of meeting your own needs and participating in community, and that's how our supportive housing works. We move to the next slide. Our mission, we're a Christian charity. That means that we are motivated by our faith. It doesn't mean that it's not about who we're discriminating or any of those pieces. It's actually about why do we do this work? And we often get that question. We create affordable housing for people seeking health, wellness, and belonging, and that's everyone. That includes our whole community. Next slide. We value the inherent dignity of all people as image bearers of God. We live out our Christian calling to love our neighbors as ourselves, and hope is the foundation of all of our actions. And I think that hope piece, that commitment to walking alongside people and being present, that tomorrow is going to be another day. So let's move on slides. So our solution is real affordability, where rent reflects income. We aim for long-term stability and low utility costs as well as we construct our buildings. Move to the next slide. Supportive housing is part of a continuum. People don't move through that in a linear path, as was discussed earlier, but there are different options and different needs for people at different times in their life. And supportive housing, as in participating with the HART Hub, with the HART Hub, the goal is to be the supportive housing that will wrap around, as Catherine described from Good Shepherd, wrap around in a person-centered way, recognizing that people's lives change, and we intend to be there through those different changes through their life in supportive housing. So moving on, talking about affordability. Affordability, as we know, there's an affordability crisis, and this is part of what is going on when people have scarcity of housing, is actually straight up affordability, and that is part of the cascade of effects that is part of the homelessness journey. So we, as affordable housing providers across the city, there's a lot of us, and we aim to provide deeply affordable rent, and that is part of the equation. And when we're looking at supportive housing options for folks coming out of the HART Hub. Next slide. We also provide supports. And so our supportive housing team is a flexible wraparound team that, depending on a person's needs and their goals and where they're coming from, right, the goal is to use those person-centered approaches to continue people's ongoing recovery journey. As we offer nursing, food security, life skills training, recreation, addiction support within a knowable community, recognizing again that wellness is that balance between personal needs and the experience within a community. Our apartment buildings tend to be small, between 40 to 60 units, and there's different sizes. Sometimes we go smaller, and we look to fit in with our communities. Next slide. Here's just an example. Just wanted to show a few pictures of some of the kinds of programming. We've had music therapy. Next slide. We have gardening. Next slide. And our buildings. Our buildings are a passive house and that's actually becomes part of a person's story as well. You're living in a place that is intentionally designed, and that purpose within the community actually becomes part of people's stories themselves as well. We educate our tenants on passive house design and what that means for them and what it means for the environment. And it's a place to be proud of when you're living in your home. Next slide. And we own and we operate our buildings. And so that means that we also we operate as a relational landlord with proactive maintenance and are responsible for the safety and security and the upkeep of our buildings. And we know that, again, part of that, having a place that you can feel proud to call home is an important part of a person's journey. Next slide. Here's the inside of a mock-up of an indwell apartment, modest size, intended to be something that is manageable, but people have their own space to cook, their own washroom, a door to lock, separate sleeping and living areas for health and wellness. And we are just about done. Next slide. This is just a picture that I like of one of our buildings, Perkins Center in the East End. And one of our staff working with one of our residents doing some gardening. Again, relational approaches of a person within a community are foundational in what we do. So that comes to the end of my presentation. That's about Indwell, and we will be working with the HART Hub in seeking supportive housing destinations where people can call home.
Thank you so much.
Many thanks to everyone. Honored to be with all of our other presenters.
Thank you. One more community partner, and that's from the Centre de Santé. I believe it's Sion. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Sion, but the Centre de Santé.
Thank you so much, everyone. And yes, you did pronounce that correctly. It is Sion. I am a registered social worker working as an addictions counselor at the Centre de Santé. We're located at 1320 Barton Street East, and the primary services provided at our center are a primary clinic, as well as support services for newcomers. We have a mental health division, as well as a gender-based violence program as well. I will keep this very brief as we are nearing the end of our session. Essentially, the main purpose of the partnership with the MHAT program at Urban Core is to provide culturally and linguistically appropriate services to our community members, with the primary focus being, as myself being French speaking, and also having the cultural competencies to serve different cultural backgrounds. The programming is, as I mentioned, is to support community members across different stages of their recovery journey. Wilson touched on this briefly, which is the pre-treatment phase, during the treatment, as well as the post-treatment stage through addictions counseling and case management, with the goal being to provide individuals with ongoing support, guidance, and connection to services that can help them move towards stability and recovery. As Monica, as well as I believe Tiana mentioned, providing culturally appropriate care is our main primary focus, as it recognizes and respects the values, experiences, and realities of the communities being served. This approach helps create a safe and supportive environment where individuals feel understood and more comfortable engaging in the care process. as we've touched on briefly, we are a very, I think, interdisciplinary team, along with the various different addictions counselors at Urban Core, as well as the other partner organizations. We're going to be working together to coordinate the support, guide clients towards the services that best meet the needs of that they're currently facing. We will be doing this through referrals, information sharing within appropriate guidelines, and coordinate the care planning as well. With the aim being that clients are able to access the broader network of service and supports in the Hamilton region. Of course, this is all with the intention of having a successful recovery, but more so a holistic approach to the full needs of a person, and with the overall goal being to stabilize them throughout the entire process of the recovery. As I mentioned, I was going to keep this very brief, and I will leave it at this for now, but of course, I'm welcome to any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Sion.
Mm-hmm.
You're all familiar with Joel McLeod, who has been providing the slides, and I want to invite him to speak next because this speaks directly to some of the questions that have already been raised about direct neighborhood representation, and it's to that end that the neighborhood liaison table has been established. And so I invite Joel to speak on that very specific neighborhood liaison table next.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jane. My name is Joel McLeod. I am the marketing and communications lead for Hamilton Urban Core. And in that role, I'm also serving as one of the co-chairs of the neighborhood liaison table. The liaison table was formed as a promise made by the board to the residents of the Kirkendall neighborhood and the city of Hamilton, governing the operation, or not the governing, but the as we unroll the Aberdeen residential treatment site to facilitate two-way communication between Hamilton Urban Core, our partners, and the residents of the neighborhood. It's part of our commitment to facilitate transparent communication, responsible program implementation, as well as just to meaningful community engagement with the residents as we unfold this project. We're committed to being a good neighbor to the residents, and as such, this table is what we think is going to be the key factor going forward to, again, facilitate that two-way communication. The table itself is right now is consisting of about 14 members. It's a collaborative group that we have consisting of local residents and neighborhood members, Hamilton Urban Core staff, community partners and stakeholders, some of which you've heard from today, as well as people with lived experiences with addictions and with mental health challenges, as well as representatives from relevant community services whenever we feel is necessary. The purpose of the table is to provide a regular forum for neighbors and Hamilton Urban Core to engage in a productive dialogue, to engage with how this program is rolling out and how it is impacting the neighborhood, and to identify ways that we can make this go smoothly, and to hear from the neighbors in a productive manner as this goes forward. So far to date, we've started meeting in December of last year. That was our first meeting, and we've held monthly meetings pretty much ever since. So we've held meetings in December, February, and March. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 13th of next month. We have established a terms of reference for our members to operate, so we have a clear understanding of how our table will operate and how it will go forward. We've even expanded the table. You may have seen on our social media call for applicants. We expanded the table, so now we have 8 residents, neighbors who sit and work with us to do that, and they'll be continuing to do that work going forward. We have given the program overview to the residents to update them with how this program is unfolding, how it works, with more detailed perspective about that. And in terms of going forward, we are planning to keep holding these meetings on a monthly basis, continuing, providing regular updates on program launch milestones as we get closer to actually opening the site. And it'll be a chance for us to review any program operational plans, including staffing and on-site supports as they come up, and continuing discussions relating to community safety, our communication protocols, and our neighborhood responsiveness, in our efforts to be accountable to the surrounding neighbors. As well, we want this table to ensure that residents have a clear channel to raise these issues and receive timely follow-up between Hamilton Urban Core and the neighborhood. So going forward, we do have on our website, we are posting our regular minutes and agenda for you to review and see how the table is coming along and how we've engaged with that so far. We encourage residents to stay connected and informed by visiting our website for more information as this table continues to go. I just want to make sure that I do take this time to extend a thank you to all the residents who did put forward their names, as well as the residents who have stepped forward to participate. We are eager to work with you and work alongside you and with whatever comes our way, and to make sure that the Aberdeen residential treatment site is a smashing success. If you have any questions regarding how this table is unfolding or how the table is doing, I invite you to email us at mhathub, MHATHUB @HUCCHC.com, and let us know anything that you think the table should be addressing. Thank you very much.
There is one question in the chat that I wonder if you could speak to. Can you speak just a little more specifically about how members are established or appointed or selected for the table? And the specific question was that the person had heard that some people were removed from the table. So I don't know if you can speak to that, or just in general the process of how you get on or off the table.
The table, we invited people to apply back when the last community meeting that we held back in October. A call was put out for people to put forward. Names were put forward, and we had a screening process of various degrees to select. We during that process, we had a number of people who just did not want to. We do ask our members to sign a conflict of interest and a participation agreement that allows us to have those conversations in a kind of a free, open dialogue, as is the nature of a project of this size. Some people just did not feel comfortable signing it at the time, and so we thought that we'd have to move on. We did put out, as I said, we did put out a call for more people to come on to the table, and we had lots of people put forward their interests. And we decided that we would expand our membership to allow more voices, so we can also allow more flexibility of time commitments, because this is a volunteer table as well. And so we expanded from a 5-person to an 8-person resident membership on the table, to bring a total to, as I said, 14 people.
That's great. That's very helpful. Thank you, Joel. Okay, so next, and this is the last person I have to present, but this is very important because this is the project lead, Simone, who's going to say a few words. And many of you have been asking about where the project is at in terms of start date and so on. And I can tell you that already, before she says her remarks, that we don't know. And I just want to harken back to when I gave my introduction. I said I was chair of the board for 13 years. And for much of that 13 years, we were trying to work with the various levels of government, primarily the province, but also the city, to get the new location from Hamilton Urban Core, which at that time was on Rebecca Street, and we eventually moved down to Cannon, and it was a very, very long process. So the months that this process have been in process for this project, by comparison to that one, has been very quick. So for those of you who think it's been slow and delays, let me talk to you about delays historically. But anyways, I'd like to call on Simone now to speak about where we're at as the project lead. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Jane, and hello, everyone. I guess we start with the end comment, which is that at this time, there's no confirmed opening date for the commencement of services. But going back a little bit, just to confirm, the site readiness activities are continuing to move forward. At this time, we are certainly focused on planning and the preparation and all the activities that go along with that will facilitate program launch. So some of the milestones that we've hit to date includes the architects have completed their drawings and their designs to guide the renovations of the property, and permit applications have been submitted to the city. We're now in the queue waiting for city approval and waiting to hear back about those approval of permits before construction work can begin on the site. So at this point, since we have no renovations timelines that's yet finalized, we can't confirm a date, an exact date for opening services, as I've mentioned. But right now, our priority is to ensure that everything that's needed to outfit the physical space, so things like the furniture, the IT, security, cameras, staffing, all those operational supports are what we're actively working on right now to make sure that when we do open, we can open safely and effectively when the time comes. We did make a previous commitment to all of you at our last community engagement session that you will be notified at least 60 days prior to opening. So we will still, of course, honor that commitment. So rest assured, you will know when that time comes, when we have all the building permits and everything that we need approved and construction is about to be initiated. We will let you know before you actually see activities happening around the facility and the building itself. So as those timelines become clearer and the project progresses, we will share information through our many portals. So we have the neighborhood liaison table. We provide updates regularly on our website. So I encourage you to keep your eye on the site. We will actually put out notices, door to door when the time comes to let you know when work is going to be taking place on the building. I guess in short, without taking too much more time, I just want to say that really our objective is to move forward carefully and responsively and to make sure that the facility, the staffing, and all the program supports are fully in place before welcoming the residents to come in. So thank you, Jane, and I hope that update, though it wasn't what you were looking for in terms of something concrete, just to give you some indication of what's happening on our end as we're awaiting those approvals. Thank you.
Simone, there's been a couple questions about whether we're paying rent or whether we, being Urban Core, owns the property. Can you speak to that?
I think I'll bounce that through to Sandy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks, Simone.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Simone. So the Hamilton Urban Core is paying rent for the property.
Thank you, Sandy. So just in terms of where we are in our agenda, Simone was the last person for sort of an update or a presentation, and now we have we're on to questions and discussions and open dialogue in terms of, and this will be answered largely by Sandy and Ike, and I will field the questions. I've been trying to keep up with the questions as people have been putting them in, and I know that in the group chat, some of you have seen there's already been put up a couple times a link to the FAQ or the frequently asked questions, because of course some of these questions have been asked previously and we've compiled answers to them and they're available online. But I see there's obviously more than one Sandy on this call. So I see there's Sandy is also asking in the questions, asking about counselor support. Of course, I don't think we can speak on behalf of any particular counselor. If you would have to direct your questions to that person. But I don't know, Sandy or Ike, if you want to talk about anything about city support at this time in general.
I can speak to that. So throughout the process from the onset of establishing the Hamilton HART Hub, we've continued to engage with the city and with our councillor and the local MPP. And yeah, we've continued to have ongoing dialogue with them.
Thank you. And just in terms of reviewing the questions that have been asked previously and that keep coming up, A couple that I'll ask you to speak to. One is about, that's been raised a couple times, is about locations close to schools and parks. And again, I'm not the person answering the questions, but there was also a question, answering, but there was also a question about whether this is a medical facility in terms of doctors and nurses. But I think if you were listening to the presentations, this is going to be a residential facility with some programming, but it's not like a medical facility where you're going in for doctors and nurses appointments. And there also will be no one, this is a stage in the recovery where there's going to be no active, drugs or alcohol being used. So I'll let Sandy and or Ike answer this more fully, but I'm sure that this would not have been, the various stages of approval it needs to go through, it would not have been approved if there was any incompatibility to this usage of the space that would be incompatible with being in proximity to schools or parks. But Sandy, can you comment more on that?
Sure. So the property was selected through a rigorous site selection process, and we do acknowledge that there's schools within 450 meters from the property, and we remain committed to ensuring that the facility operates safely and when respectful neighbors. And we continue to make sure that we adhere to all operational guidelines and any city regulations.
Right. And I'm just trying to keep up with the questions in the chat, Sandy. You may be able to see them also, but was there a need for a change in zoning for this location?
No, the building is currently zoned as a Group C residential, and that's what is going into there. So a Group C residential facility is what we're putting in there. So there's no need for changing zone.
Great, thank you. And another question was about choosing a site with the need for renovations. Again, I could try to answer that, but just in terms of you don't always have a place ready to go without renovations. But Sandy, I'll turn that over to you as well.
So actually what we're doing is just minor retrofits just to get the place up and running, like, furnishing it in terms of, putting security, like maybe like the windows, the doors, and just those sort of things. Because actually the HART funding does not permit for any major capital. So what we're doing are just minor retrofits just to get the facility up and running.
Right. Thank you. And there seems to have been a comment made, I believe, last time, maybe at the October meeting, about how, I don't know if you can confirm this, that the residents would somehow be confined to the facility. I'm not sure if that comment was made, but can you confirm, whether they'll be able to come and go or walk in the neighborhood, or what that would look like?
So it's an inpatient program, and the property actually has a compound for indoor, which allows for indoor and outdoor programming. Residents will not be moving out of the facility unaccompanied. They will be accompanied by our staff if there's need to, maybe to go for appointments or to go to the pharmacy. They will be accompanied by staff.
Right. And the placement period for any one individual is about 3 months. Is that correct?
Yeah, our program currently run for 3 to 4 months, but we do understand that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and some residents might require more time. So the maximum they can say is up to 6 months, but obviously it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, and the counselors would assess the residents' needs.
Okay. Again, some of these questions are going into a level of detail. Let me just read this latest one. Okay, so this is a question: is the community consultation a requirement from the Ministry of Health? I'm wondering if other residential treatment facilities go through the same transparent community consultation updates. Can you speak to that, Sandy?
Sure. So I think as Jane, as you mentioned, we've gone, like when you were on our board chair, we were going through the process of moving into 430 canon. And Hamilton Urban Core, we've always done community engagement. Like this is a critical part of the work that we do. So we remain committed to continuing to do that. In terms of the other residential treatment facilities, I can't currently speak to that, but I do know that other HART hubs are continuing to engage with their communities as the rollout happens.
Right. To that question, the question actually says that it was a transition from a CTS, a treatment site, to a HART hub. But my understanding is that the treatment sites were closed down, and then we applied, or I'm saying we, Urban Core applied to run a HART hub. So unfortunately, it wasn't actually a transition. One was mandated to close down by the Ford government, and then there was an application to the HART hub. So I don't know if there's anything further to say about that, Sandy, other than the Urban Core is very much subjected to what the initiatives of the provincial government is putting in their framework. Or the comment here is spaces that were CTSs were granted HART hub funding. Yeah, they were, but in each case, the CTS would have to close down, and then the HART hub funding would have to be applied for. Okay, there's something that we haven't mentioned yet, or that it's been mentioned in the questions and we haven't talked about yet, is that my understanding is that there is some a legal proceeding going on, an injunction. And so I don't know if Sandy, I'm a lawyer myself. I forgot to say that in the introduction. So my first comment would be that we probably can't comment on ongoing litigation at the moment, but again, I don't want to preempt all of the questions. So Sandy, I'll let you answer that one.
Sure. So Hamilton Urban Core, we can speak to the matter as the legal action is between the concerned Kirkendall Limited and the City of Hamilton. Hamilton Urban Core is not a party to the litigation. Our role continues to focus on developing and operating the program to address a significant need for addiction recovery services in our community.
Right. So the litigation is from the neighborhood group in the City of Hamilton. That's who's on the who the litigation is between. So in answer to the question about who is paying for it, I would imagine if the City of Hamilton is part of the litigation, then yes, taxpayers are paying for that. But yeah, thank you. And again, I'm trying to keep up with all of the questions in the chat, and some of them I noted earlier. Another question. Well, and again, I think that's already been answered to the person who's asking who's paying for the building to sit empty right now. The organization Urban Core is paying rent, and they're also paying for the retrofit or the renovations that need to be done. I don't know if there's anything to add to that, Sandy, but yeah, that's part of the project expenses. And for those people that are commenting about wasting time with litigation and a lengthy process, I'm sure everybody on this screen would agree that it's not helpful to have that kind of litigation, and it's certainly not something that was initiated by Urban Core. But totally agreed that it's not a good use of anyone's time or money. But one question I think arising from, because the question is about who is paying for things. If Sandy, perhaps you could comment on the funding for this project. What percentage is from the Ontario government? I believe it's close to 100%, but perhaps you could comment on that.
Sure. So HART hubs are funded by the Ontario government. And also just to clarify, so the Aberdeen is just one component of the Hamilton HART hub. So the Hamilton HART hub has actually been up and running since April of 2025. So this is just one of the programming of the HART hub. I think right now we're about 90% up and running with all other services. And this is just one of the last services to get up and running.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. And so it is 100% funded through the province. After a very lengthy, well, not lengthy, but a rigorous approval process. Okay. I am seeing if there's any questions. I don't want to leave anyone behind if you have burning questions that haven't been asked, but we are actually, I think we'd advertise this goes to 8 o'clock, which is right about now, but I'm happy to stay if there's a few more questions. Okay, there's some question about the neighborhood group in Toronto. They're fighting to keep their CTS site open. I think I've heard something about that myself. So I'll just look at the next last two comments. Okay, so there's a question about what other sites were considered besides the one on Aberdeen, and also a question about the CTS. I don't know if it's a question, but a comment about the CTS site in Toronto that is fighting to keep their harm reduction site open. I don't know if you want to comment on either of those things, Sandy, about the site in Toronto, or about what other locations were considered for this residential facility besides the Aberdeen location.
Sure. So we did consider several potential sites during the preliminary planning phase before we landed on this site. So we did use a third-party real estate firm to do the site selection process, and we had to look at suitability of the physical space, zoning requirements, and just overall alignment with program needs. For example, there's program funding guidelines that we had to adhere to, like no major capital in any of the space, and it had to be like a residential space and a space that is safe and accessible for residents.
Right, and I see a further question about why did the community not hear about this prior to choosing the site? And again, I never want to steal your thunder, Sandy. I'm just trying to predict the answer because I think the requirements from the province are very strict about the site options, and that you would have to go through those steps with the province before getting anywhere close to a community consultation. But perhaps you could comment further on that. Or is that basically the answer?
Yeah, that's correct, Jane.
Okay. And so, yeah, because I remember we went through a very similar process where we had to look at a lot of sites, and it's very going through all of the requirements that the province puts out there. So you can be assured that once a site is selected, it has met all of the requirements of the province for such a site. There's a comment here about the embargo with this program. I'm not sure what that means in terms of what the embargo is. There is no embargo with the program. Actually, that's from Monica from Dwa da Dehs Nye. Monica, can you say more about your question? Do you mean the people who have applied for an injunction? Is that what you mean?
Oh, hi. Yes, sorry. No, I wasn't referring to the injunction. I'm more referring to my understanding was that, and again, seeing this from both locations, my understanding was that last year, all HART hubs were kind of undergoing an embargo. I remember even for myself, for Niagara, when I was to hire staff, I wasn't able to disclose a start date or even their salaries, which made the recruitment process a little bit challenging. So I just wanted to, if you're able to share any and able to speak to any of this process for Hamilton specifically, and wondering if that was in relation to why information about this location wasn't shared with the neighborhood prior to.
Right. So we've touched on that a little bit in terms of the site selection, but Sandy, do you want to comment further on that?
Sure. So obviously at the rollout of the project, there were several embargoes, and we're only able to share what we're allowed to share. And I can't really speak more in terms of like what specific embargoes.
Okay. And I see some of the same people asking questions, which is not a bad thing. And I'm glad you all have questions and you're concerned. But this is very close to other homes. But again, I would repeat that the site has passed a very rigorous site selection process, and that there is obviously no objections or no harm seen to having this kind of center that close in a neighborhood's location. There's a question about the budget for this project. I don't know, there's the project as a whole in terms of the HART hub as well as the Aberdeen location. I'm not sure if you can give us any kind of indication of the budget, either Sandy or Ike.
I think Ike wanted to say something, so I'll let him
No,
speak.
I just wanted to point out, answer something about when somebody was asking question about the councillor being in support of the, and somebody said is the MPP in support. I think that's very unfair to ask us those kind of questions because we cannot speak for the MPP or the council. So those kind of questions should go directly to the office of the council or the office of the MPP. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. And of course, I'm not putting anyone on the spot, but if anyone that's on this call wants to make a comment, this is your opportunity. Otherwise, you'll have to pursue those questions elsewhere. Okay, so here's a question. When the site eventually opens, what is the process, the referral process for clients to be included in this facility, in this neighborhood residential facility?
Sure. So referrals to the program can be sent to the program email. So MAT Hub, so MHAT Hub at HUCCC.com, and one of our counselors would follow up accordingly. We would not be accepting inquiries or drop-in intakes at the 276 Aberdeen Avenue, but clients or community partners can drop in at 430 Cannon Street East.
Okay. Thank you again. I'm trying to keep up with all of the questions coming in. I mean, there's questions about why we can't get a site in Dundas and Ancaster or closer to nature. I think actually the site on Aberdeen is quite is not too far from nature and is a lovely site. And again, it's gone through a rigorous selection process that has met all of the criteria of the government, which is funding this. So I'm not sure we can give more answers on that. I'm seeing there was still a few questions coming in. I don't want to stop it, but I'm not sure that I'm seeing a lot of questions that get at areas that we haven't already discussed. Yes, I know you came here to ask questions. So the question is, why can't it be closer to nature? And that the clients cannot be off the property. It's not, what we heard was that if they're off the property, they're supervised so that they would be supervised to go to appointments and so on. Can we show you the rigorous process that has gone through? I don't think we can directly. I think that was the comments about the embargo, that the province basically controls the process and they control when we're able to publicly announce that we've completed the process and have an approved site and so on. So it's again not up to Urban Core to show you that process. That would be a representative of the provincial government, but I don't believe that the details of that process are publicly available. Ancaster and Dundas don't have the same specialized medical facilities close by to be accessible. I think we have to remember that this is a residential program for 3 to 4 months. It's not people moving in on a permanent basis. I think that's why it was really important to hear from some of the community partners tonight, especially some of the ones that will be looking at housing programs to combat homelessness, to get people into more permanent housing and so on. This is, yes, it's residential, but it's not like people who are moving in to take up permanent residence in the area. And it should really have minimal disruption to the neighborhood, which is why it was approved. And yes, of course, treatment programs need to have long-term follow-up. That's why I think this is such an exciting initiative, because you're not just going from detox to something where you're seeing someone in at 430 Cannon, but there's actually a transitional residential element here that is part of the long-term follow-up, and then hopefully from there to something in supported housing where there might be further long-term follow-up. I'm really starting to lose my voice now. But these are great questions. I've got 8:13 already, but we'll take 2 or 3 more minutes if there's further questions. But I think the organization is doing a great job through largely Sandy and Ike and others in answering all these questions. And again, we've got the neighborhood liaison table in place, which has started meeting in December. And so that will continue, you know, that as well as the website and so on, will continue to answer the questions as much as we can in terms of next steps. There's a commitment to giving at least 60 days notice to the launch date when we know what that is. And these, as well as the neighborhood liaison table, which is ongoing every month, there's a commitment to having this kind of consultation 4 times a year. And thank you for Ike, I'll go to you in just 1 second. The last comment is that this is a failure on Urban Core, that this is not already up and running. I would respectfully disagree. We've got the program up and running since April 2025. It's just this particular aspect that is not up and running yet, but that's not through any failure of Urban Core. Again, we're moving forward, as Simone said, as carefully as possible so that we're not bending any rules or doing anything, cutting any corners, you know. Ike, were you going to speak to that as well?
Yeah, I was going to speak to that because it's when someone says it's a failure on Urban Core's part, I don't know why they would think like that. Sandy has already said that the housing component is not just the only thing that makes this HART Hub what it is. There's other components to it, and about 80 or 90% of that is all going already. And so it's not, when somebody can achieve 80 to 90% of what the government is asking you to do, that is not a failure. It is not, definitely it's not, it's more going towards a success. And I just want to point out something. Because of lack of time, obviously, all the questions, all the issues people have raised, if those are not being captured in the FQA that we already have, they will be captured. You know, the staff is taking note of all those questions, and we'll still come back. I'm sure this is not the only session we're going to have. We'll still come back to make sure that any of question that is not in our, you know, question under the bank already, we'll put that in and make sure that the answers are there. For those we can answer. Some things we can't. Some people should understand some things are not in our control. We cannot force the city to issue license. The city has a protocol that they have to go through, and Urban Core has to respect that. We have to wait for it to come through, and when it does, but we are doing all the work in the background to make sure that when it does come through, we can hit the ground running. Okay, so for someone to say, please, it's not true. For someone to say it's not a success, it is going to be a success. We're sure of that.
Thank you, Ike. And I think someone had said, you know, we're not allowing time to ask the hard questions. We agree that these are hard questions. We are trying to answer them. There was also someone who asked a question about people who are recovering from addiction. They might also have mental health problems. They might also have physical injuries or physical situations. And I know that the very model of Urban Core is to have you know, wraparound care, so that certainly all of those things will be addressed. But I'm losing my voice. It is Friday night, and I thank you all for your patience in coming out and for providing all of your questions and your interest. But we are going to have to wrap up now. We said we'd wrap up about 8 o'clock. It's 8:17. So I really want to thank you all, you know, even those of you who have, or particularly those of you who have questions, for coming out and listening to the presentations and asking your questions. And we want to continue to work with you at the next consultation like this and through the liaison table. So have a great rest of your night, everyone, and a great weekend. And we'll hope to talk to you next time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.